Hello and welcome to my type of shit. I am Michelle, an ENFP, and
I'm Shaun, INTJ. Okay.
I'm Emily or Pakoki, which I'm an INFJ.
I can't, bro. I can't.
hey, we try. And today we're gonna be talking about the INTP personality type. I'm excited. What about you guys?
Pretty
It's a god type.
excited.
First off,
Seriously.
I just thought of this instantly. First thing I thought of. The INTP subreddit is actually the most popular subreddit of all the 16 personality types, including the aggregated one. So
Really?
yeah, it has the most subscribers out of any of the uh Myers-Briggs subreddits.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm not that surprised.
I'm
Yeah,
not
that doesn't
surprised
surprise me
either.
either. Yeah. Let's see what it's at now though, because last time I think it was at 50. Oh, now it's at 61,000, which
So, oh,
not
go ahead.
bad. Like that's a community right there. Like you know what I'm saying? Like that's a community. These
Why
people,
do you? Oh, sorry.
you go.
I was gonna ask you, why do you think it's so popular?
I don't know. I think it has something to do with these people probably have a hard time finding people like themselves, similar to the INTJ scenario. Like they just want. I don't know. And these people live on the internet, so INTJ I think is number two and has 52K. But I'm just checking real quick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting. I mean, I personally also think that it has to do with people INTPs being on the internet, and I just feel like it's such an NE like extroverted intuition sort of place, the internet, and introverted thinking, their primary function. It's like they're trying to like figure out things, and they're not doing it just because like they have like an end goal in mind. They're trying to do it just because they like to learn things, and they just like to collaborate with people, and they probably feel like aliens, or like a little bit. I mean, because a lot of INTPs, which this is a stereotype, are typically, at least when they're younger, are not considered the most popular people, just
Mhm.
because they're not really interested in that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So they may find that they find their people, so then they're just like, and also INTPs, at least from my opinion, I mean, from my um perspective, like to talk a lot.
Mm.
Yes, when they're excited about something, they want to tell you everything they know about that subject.
Exactly. And like send you a ton of articles about it, and just, yeah, they're just really, they when they're passionate about something, they are very passionate about it, and they just like want everybody to know about it. So,
Yeah. You know what's funny though? Like my INTP friend I got on Discord, he he's a good listener too though. Like they're surprisingly good listeners. Like they'll kind of wait until you're completely done with your point, which I don't always get with everyone else. So I don't know. It's kind of nice I think, where I could just fully express my point. He kind of really likes to get the full understanding and then comment on it, which is good.
yeah.
And then when they comment, they let you know everything.
Yeah.
But that's good because it is like more of a back and forth where they do listen to you and they take everything in that you're saying and they give it all like a benefit of a doubt. I think more so than a lot of people. A lot of people will like close out a lot of your information before you say any of it. And I don't think the INTPs do that as much. Um, and then they'll give it back to you everything they think about what you've just said to them or whatever else they think of while they're talking.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think INTPs are very good listeners, but I do think, I mean, but that's not always the case. Like my dad's an INTP, and I mean, he's a very good listener in a lot of ways, but he also will talk over people as well. Like, but I think it depends on the situation. When it's typically just a conversation between the two of us on the phone, he will like listen to me for a long time, and he just really likes having those kind of conversations. And I also feel like INTPs get, at least for me as an INFJ, I think INTPs give really good advice. They don't necessarily follow their advice, in my, at least from what I've seen, but they
Yeah.
give really good
That
advice.
actually is true. They don't always follow their advice. Though, I mean, because look, that's the thing is like it's a big difference between knowing the answer and having the capability of executing the answer because they really lack in that execution realm, in my experience. I think that's what we should start talking about. I mean, I kind of did just jump into the subreddit thing, but we should just talk about like our experiences with ENTPs as a whole.
INTPs?
Or yeah, INTPs. I mean, yeah. So I mean, you said who was the one here that dated an INTP? Did one of you guys or one of you guys live with one, right?
I used to live with an INTP, yeah,
Yeah.
for a while.
And what was that like living with this creature?
So definitely he fits some stereotypes. Like he was a programmer for a website.
Oh
His job
my
was to
god. Are they
analyze.
all programmers? Like every last one of them?
My dad's a doctor, so.
Okay.
No, I think he just is a stereotype. Um, he did actually really like going out and doing like outdoorsy stuff. Like he was really into rock climbing and biking. He was also kind of like a hippie. He had like really long hair pulled into de- dreadlocks. Okay. um, and he also had a huge obsession with coffee. He had like 10
Yep.
different machines to make coffee, and he drank more coffee than anyone I've ever seen. Like he could drink it all day long, black, just like cup after cup after cup after cup, just like all day long drinking coffee. Um, and he was a character. He spent a lot of time alone, but when he was ready to socialize, he was ready to socialize. And if you got on any topic that he even had remote interest in, I mean, there were times when, because I can be introverted too, there were times when I would be afraid to start a conversation because I didn't want to be there for like an hour.
Oh my gosh, that is so relatable.
Because when you live with them, like, you see them all the time, you run into them in the kitchen because he's making his, like, 8th cup of coffee that day. And you're just, like, on a break at work and because I work from home, so it's hard too. Um, I mean, he was a character, he was great, like, we had a lot of things in common and we could really talk a lot because that extroverted intuition when you find another person with extroverted intuition, I mean, come on, your conversations can, like, take off and they can be really interesting. Um, and we did have a lot of, like, really deep philosophical questions conversations. One thing I would add, though, that people probably don't realize is he was quite emotional and his friends being happy really mattered a lot to him, and if, like, a friend would call him really upset, it would get him really upset, and he'd need a lot of time to work through that emotion.
That doesn't surprise me at all because that's something that I've noticed about INTPs as well, which is it's just very interesting. Like, because like, obviously I've been close with an INTP my whole life because my dad's an INTP. And he fits a lot of the stereotypes that you said. It's interesting that you said liking to go outdoors and do like activities like that. My dad also really values that. And something that my dad will do is like he'll just which I do as well, but he does it to the extreme. He'll just sit in a car and it could be like the manual for his car or like some really obscure like article or like book. And he'll just sit in his car and just like read that like almost in its entirety. And it's like instead of going in the house or something, or like he spends a lot of time alone too. But as far as emotions go, my dad also like he so the thing about the INTPs is extroverted feeling is their fourth function, at least in Myers-Briggs, and they're not very good at like controlling their own emotions in a lot of ways. Like they tend to have very extreme emotions when they have it. I guess that's a kind of a miss. I shouldn't have said they can't control their emotions. They're good at like coming across as very logical. They do control it in that way, but when they do have emotions, it's like it can be very abrupt for people that are not used to seeing that INTP in like maybe a more personal way. And it will be like almost a bit extreme. And as far as like coming into, like you said, Michelle, getting emotionally affected by someone else just talking on the phone or like having someone that's super close to them. I've noticed that with my dad and other INTPs. It's like because of extroverted feeling, and that's like an atmospheric like function in general, it's like people that value extroverted feeling, we can't help but like kind of feel those emotions, whether we or not we like will push into that or something. I don't know if that lean into it. It's we're going to feel it, and like for an INTP, that's so foreign for them, like to be in that headspace because they're very logical. It's like hard for them to like come down from that like emotional ledge in some ways. I don't know if that made any sense, but
Look at all I can think about is these memes I'm looking at on this subreddit. I put one in the chat if you guys click on that one.
Oh, I looked at it.
Yeah, there's crazy like I just can't believe these guys. Their subreddit's pretty good. Like for it's active, it's got good memes, better than pretty much any of the other ones. I actually send them a lot to my buddy over Discord, so
No,
yeah.
I'm just gonna read out this meme because it's hilarious. It's like r/I am very smart, r/INTP, and the person is like, you need to find the difference between these two pictures. And the person's like, they're the same picture.
oh my gosh, that's funny.
Yeah,
That's
crazy.
funny.
Yeah, I got it up on the screen, so it'll be in the video. But yeah,
I do have a confession. This is very random, but kind of it's definitely associated with this. I have never actually really used Reddit. Like
fine.
it's crazy though. Like I've been on Reddit. I could probably count on two hands how many times I've been on Reddit.
It's
And I
not
know that
like
I
the
need
end
to
of
be
the.
on Reddit like
No,
a
it's
lot
not the
more.
end of the world though. Like all these websites just recycle the same stuff. Like I was saying the one time, it's like often there's just one website that originates the content, and then all the other sites just repost it to their own, and someone gets like a lot of stuff for reposting. Because there's people who only use Tumblr or only use YouTube or only use Twitter. So, I mean, Reddit's
Yeah.
just another group of people. So, but I was just mainly using it as a metric because it's an interesting website.
A group full of INTPs. No.
Yeah.
No, but I would assume that INTPs, whether they know that they're an INTP or not, would be incredibly drawn to Reddit for the type
Yeah.
of material that it would bring and for the
100%.
type of conversations they could have. Like the experiences that I have with INTPs, they just want to have a lot of conversations and go deep into things and really like fully delve into things. And you can really do that on Reddit and get a lot of people with a lot of opinions. So I think that INTPs would probably be drawn to that kind of arena for mental discourse.
Well, and
Yeah.
probably their tertiary SI or introverted sensing probably likes the thread aspect of Reddit, like where
I'm
they
just
can
gonna be
actually
honest.
go through the threads and like have them, because like I know a lot of INTPs like to, like for example, Ben, he has a YouTube channel. He's an INTP and he does a lot of stuff on socionics and like Enneagram and stuff, and he just loves having just like this catalog of information and stuff.
Yeah, it's just that like we love to read, and there's nowhere to go on the internet to read quite like well, if you want to get like, you know, the fastest summary you can get, but also like, you know, still good chunks of text. Reddit's just the medium. It's kind of gone to shit in the last couple of years with all these admins taking
Really?
power. Like it was a lot better in 2014, but so were all the other sites, you know? Like all the other sites, like YouTube has kind of gone down. A lot of these other sites have.
I don't think YouTube has. I actually think YouTube is making a new, like, I think YouTube has gone through a lot of phases, and I actually think it's on the upswing right now. But it did go on the downswing for a while.
It's just with like the whole like they always. It just seems like these sites like YouTube should have like better support or something. Like I don't know, or like the adpocalypse and things like this that just.
They need more INTPs.
That's exactly it. They need more INTPs. Why does it seem like every INTP is a coder? Like I'm serious. They are just the coders. Like are
Well,
they not?
I think it's also a generational thing too.
Yeah,
I
that's true
think
too.
that's absolutely true. And if you look at what coding is, it's something that in order to be proficient at, you have to really want to get obsessed over it
Mhm.
and you have
Yeah.
to really learn everything about it so you can recognize when things are off because coding is a very in-depth thing to get involved in. And it takes a lot of dedication where I think it really pulls on TI, SI a lot, like
Mhm.
more so than any other cognitive function. So if those are your two strongest, like especially if you value your TI over your, I mean, your SI over your NE, I think that it would be really, really easy for INTPs to get wrapped up in it because it would be exciting in the beginning and it would be something that they can get good at and master. And it's something that's always changing, it's always developing, there's always new things to learn. It's something that wouldn't get old. I think there's a lot of reasons why they would be drawn to it in particular. Whereas, for example, someone like me, I would be like, oh, coding's great. I'm going to learn everything about coding. And then I would get tired of it like 3 weeks later and move on to something else.
Yeah.
That's
I don't know,
interesting.
but all I know is like this INTP friend I have, which it should be mentioned. I think I mentioned in another podcast or one of my videos. I mentioned it somewhere, but he's like the first friend I feel like I've ever really had. He might be like the only person I feel like I've met because like I don't feel like I'm like anyone else I ever met, but this guy he's so much like me. And but we're different types, which is interesting. You'd think that one breakthrough would be an INTJ, but despite us approaching problems so differently, we just always come to like the same conclusion. We can hash it out. There's never emotion involved in our arguments. Like I think the word over the course of like the 8 months I've known him, I think we've gotten in like two actual arguments that like pissed me off, and like the only and both times he was right and I was just in a bad mood, or like you know what I'm saying, like the next day or like later that week I agreed like he was right, so like either like for the most part we come to a conclusion like extremely like quick. Like we can disagree on something and just hash it out until we get to a common conclusion, you know and
Yep.
he's open about like I don't understand this, can you explain that more, like a lot. Like he's not so like I know it all, and like at least in our format when we talk, it's not so much like either one of us have that like god complex, which is like the stereotype and all that. It's more just like we're just really trying to hash out these comprehensive ideas, and if one of us doesn't understand it, the other one just needs to go on and on until the other person does it to the because you don't just want to understand it, you want to understand it the way the other person does. That way you can help them, refine their model of it.
Yeah.
So it's exactly that. Like so he came to me. We were talking like our talk the last couple of days has been about like finances and stuff, and he's talking about like, well, should I get a car or something like that? And he was like, he sent me a picture of like a BMW or something, and I was like, and I was like, dude, I was like, don't get that. I was like, they're gonna destroy you on interest. And he was like, well, I just need to understand this. And I just went on and on for like 25 minutes. And he's like, okay, I think I'm starting to get the picture now on why car payments are bad. So like he like if I'm not knowledgeable about a subject or he's not knowledgeable about a subject, like we'll just help each other out and piggyback each other, and it's great. Like I said, it's a good connection to have. Like I don't know, they're smart people, but I think we both have a bit of an intolerance for like too much feelers. I think like I don't hate feelers. It's just you can't get this kind of put your emotions to the side discussion with anyone else. At least from my experience, it's really refreshing with the INTP. It's just refreshing discussion. It's comprehensive. There's no emotions involved. It goes super far in depth. And another thing too is like, let's say you want to have a discussion with someone about something, like you kind of need to have like the same baseline knowledge for like the discussion to be really intriguing. Whereas like if I know a lot more about like I don't know, let me think of something. I'll just think like Hearthstone. It's on my desktop, Hearthstone, okay? It's like and you don't know anything about it, it's not going to be that fun of a discussion. But if we both know pretty much the same amount, not exact, then we can have a great discussion. And it seems like every single topic I bring up with this guy, it's almost like we spent the first 10 years of our lives reading the same stuff only to meet one day. If that makes sense.
That's
Whereas
crazy.
isn't that crazy? Like I don't know, it's like this it's like I can bring up a topic and he instantly has just about the same understanding of it as me. And that just comes from reading and reading and reading, you know? and being interested in the same stuff.
So I think that actually brings up two things that I think would be interesting to talk about. I'm gonna breeze through the first one and then we can delve into the second one. So something that I've noticed as a kind of trend is that when there are two people of the same type, but the but a difference with their perceiving and judging, so INTP, INTJ, ENFP, ENFJ, etc., we often have similar interests and decisions, but it's the way that we come about them that's different. And I've actually noticed this trend with a lot of types. So I thought I wanted to call that out because I was hearing that from you in your description with your INTP friend. Um, and then that also leads me into that conversation I'd like to have, which is, people often have a difficult time telling the difference between an INTJ and an INTP. And I think that's a lot of why is because you guys do have similar interests and you can have similar decisions about things. So how would somebody from the outside be able to tell you guys apart?
That is a great question. It would be super difficult. Like it really would. I think it comes down. There are some core differences though, in the way that we approach things. And like the one I've given before is that like if we let's say we both are having an issue with the same thing, like I will try to fix what I've currently already started to build versus like the INTP seems to just want to make like a whole new like they kind of want to scrap it and like kind of innovate, start something new. Like he this is the analogy he uses. And he one time he was kind of frustrated with me. He's like, "Shaun, he's like, "Why does it seem like okay, if your plane isn't working, he's like, "Why are you always trying to fix the plane?" He's like, "Why don't you just try to build a boat?" And like I don't think he understands that like when I'm working on a part of my life, like let's say I'm working on a section of my life, like fitness or something. It's like I come up with a plan and I build on top of that plan, if that makes sense. You know? I don't ever want to just like drop what I've already started. I just want to change the script or switch things around. I say, "Well, how has this changed?" And I don't want to whereas I don't know, they definitely don't really they definitely don't plan like me. He definitely doesn't.
Yeah, I agree with that. You're more solution based. Like you have an end goal. It's like your extroverted thinking is wanting to utilize what your knowledge base for a particular thing. And
Mhm.
that's why you don't care, like what you just said is like steering from that. You're not going to do something completely different because that's not what you want to
Mhm.
obtain.
Yeah.
So,
Like I started building the plane with the idea that it could break in mind, So I'm here to fix it. Whereas I don't think they do that. I think they just kind of, run down a path, and if it looks like a dead end, they'll switch. It's weird. I'm being vague. It's abstract. Certain people might not like that description, but it's something we've noted before. Uh, but yeah, I definitely manage my time differently too. Like this dude will just. I mean, neither of us like wasting time, but our approaches to like when we get in like our grinding mode or like when we're focused on our passions, like it does seem like he'll just kind of he wastes a day away. Like I tend to be more time management based. It seems. There is the whole stereotype where they don't. Oh, that's another thing. I don't. He doesn't get a lot of sleep either. But I think that's common with INFPs too, which they share the same middle two functions, right? Something
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they. I don't know. Like it does seem like those people who like stay up for like 24 hours straight or something, and they just drink a bunch of coffee. Like I'm not like that. I have an extremely structured lifestyle. I think that's the main core difference. Because if you actually think of the letters, right, the last letter, the only difference is the lifestyle. Obviously, when you get into functions, there's tons of differences between our types. But that last letter is lifestyle preference, and like I'm super structured. I sleep the same 8 hours every day, or if I change like I know exactly when I'm gonna wake up and go to sleep. Like I know exactly what I'm gonna do when I wake up. I know exactly. Like I pretty much always know what I'm gonna do like a half hour before I do it. Whereas they seem to really just they have no issue just going with the flow. Like really not at all. You know.
Yeah.
And whether that's diving into their passion or you know watching 12 hours of YouTube, That's that seems to be the case. Like, I don't know. Like, it is about structure for me. That's what it has always been about. Oh, I run on systems a lot more than him. He doesn't run on systems. Everything I have is based on a system versus like he kind of just like wings it, it seems. But he knows what's right still. Our models of the world are fairly accurate or fairly similar, if that makes sense. But yeah, not as systematic. That's one thing.
I think it's not even that he's not systematic. It's probably just systematic in a way different way than what you are like. Because again,
Considering.
he doesn't like for you. So just to kind of break it down for people that may be confused functionally, because you don't want to just look at the letters in general. So for Shaun as an INTJ, he leads with introverted intuition. And his second function is extroverted thinking. His third function is introverted feeling. And his fourth function is extroverted sensing. Whereas an INTP leads with introverted thinking first, and their second function is extroverted intuition, and their tertiary function is introverted thinking. Is introverted sensing, and their fourth function is extroverted feeling. So functionally, they're very different. And I would say the main difference between INTPs and INTJs is the way they, like you were saying, approach life. Whereas for you, you're looking for attainment, and you're kind of, because you lead with introverted intuition first, you have a vision for your whatever you're trying to do, and you're going to use extroverted thinking, your auxiliary function, your secondary function, to get to that point. So everything you're doing, you are doing it for a reason, and you're going to learn things for a reason. You're doing things for a reason to get to that goal. Whereas an introverted thinker, as the INTP is, they aren't so concerned with that. They're more concerned with gathering information. And then extroverted intuition, their secondary function, is like a widespread of different possibilities and like figuring things out and going in so many different directions. Like, for example, my dad, an INTP, he went to school, he's very intelligent, all of those things, but he originally went to school for pharmacy. He actually became a pharmacist, like went to pharmacy school, all of that. And then he found pharmacy to be boring, but he learned every single thing about pharmacy and like still probably reads up on it and stuff. But he decided, I'm bored with this. I'm going to become an emergency medicine physician. So he went back to school to be a doctor. I don't know how many INTJs would make the same move. But
Yeah.
not saying that's I don't know, but like that's a lot of school for just like really learning information.
Mhm.
Obviously it was for a purpose and he's still doing that, but I think it's a bit of a different approach that an INTJ would have.
Okay, so that actually made me think of somebody that I used to know. Um, and he was in college for like as long as he could make the school let him stay without graduating. Like it's not like he didn't have enough credits. He probably graduated when they finally forced him to with more classes than the average like PhD, but just with a bachelor's. Like he would just take as many courses about as many subjects as he possibly could, just purely to think about them and to engage with these ideas. And now that I'm thinking about it, I think he was an I or is an INTP. Like the guy went to school um probably for like 8 or 9 years, just taking as many classes as he possibly could.
Yeah, that's like my dad. I think he went to like with everything, because pharmacy school is like 2 years on its own. Like he went to undergrad, then pharmacy school, became a pharmacist, then went to med school, and also fought like in Desert Storm as a medic. But yeah, like that's a lot of schooling. That's like way too much schooling. And he actually has said that he would go back to school in a heartbeat just to go back to school, just to like learn things. And he, like, for example, he plays the guitar, and I will put that in quotation marks. I'm not sure how great he is at guitar. I've never seen him actually play it I mean, I've seen him play it, but I've never seen him play it like to a degree that would be like, oh, this is a song kind of thing. He was so concerned with learning the music theory and so much. Like he literally has every single book there is like out there on guitar, and he has learned so much music theory, so many things, and like he'll play guitar like as a fun thing, but it's like the theory behind it. He probably isn't that great at guitar. And sorry, Dad, if you're listening to this, I love you, and I mean, I want to hear you play guitar. but yeah, like he doesn't care. It's like all about the theory and like learning things. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, they definitely do have that. I mentioned that in the first episode where like he wants to understand just for the sake of understanding. Like I don't get that. It's kind of like he operates with this. He has this overall model of the world, and all he wants to do is just like get that model like more. He wants to enhance that model, refine it. Whereas me, like I still love to read. Like I'm a nerd, but like I only want to know like useful stuff. Like how does this benefit me? If it doesn't benefit me, I'm throwing it out the door. You know. Whereas they just want to just keep refining. It's almost like imagine a painting. They just want to keep adding detail to the painting.
Yeah.
Whereas I just want the main core stuff. So despite us having the same, you know, like we read the same stuff and have a good baseline understanding of the stuff. That seems to be a difference in the way that we approach it. Also, I'm looking at this chart here, and like all these studies. I think I brought something else up at one point in one of these other episodes, but all these studies, there's only limited sample sizes for studies like this. But this is the what is the highest IQ for the Myers-Briggs test. And when I was first on the INTJ subreddit like 4 or 5 years ago, like they said that was the highest combined IQ, but like INTP in this study here is higher by a reasonable degree, and I would maybe stand by it. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Like I honestly wouldn't. I'm pretty sure Einstein was an INTP. Like
Yeah.
these dudes are just they're machines. They are. I mean, not that INTJs aren't, but it would not surprise me if we were number two in terms of the just like pattern recognition and all that stuff.
And
So, oh,
oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. You go ahead.
I wanted to follow up on that Einstein discussion because there's a lot of people who think that Einstein was an INTJ because of that whole like mastermind um,
No.
stereotype.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
don't know.
see
I've
that at
never heard that.
all.
I've
I
never
don't
heard
see
that.
that at all. Like, I mean, to me, he just like embodies the INTP. Like,
Yeah,
he seems very
he
stereotypical
doesn't have
INTP.
that NI that I'm looking for. Like I've never seen it in him, at least. Like nothing like I see out of like Elon Musk, or like who else do I see with NI? I'm thinking of
I don't
Nikolai
even know.
Tesla.
I
Like
don't even know if like Elon Musk. I don't really know what Elon Musk's
I've
personality type is, but
he's definitely like he's a total like ENTJ INTJ. That's the main debate, which I'm all open to both. Like people genuinely think that he can't be an INTJ because he's like gotten too good of results. Put it that way. Like he just
well,
executes too hard. He
that's
executes
that's
in a way, and
true. That's really like short-sighted, though. I
people
feel
like
like.
he executes in a way that an ENTJ would. Basically, that's what
Well,
people say.
that's basically like saying like any type can't be like a CEO or like
I
can't
know.
be,
I
yeah,
know.
like there's okay, there as far as like successful people out there, there is all types represented. And maybe there's more of like one area than the other. I mean, one personality type of over the other, but it's not going to be, it's just the same thing as like IQ. Even though like maybe INTPs do like at least from those statistics have the highest IQ, and I wouldn't be surprised by that. That doesn't mean that other personalities, aren't there's not intelligence within those personalities. I even think there's some not so smart INTPs. Um, maybe,
Yeah,
but like
it's
you
possibly true.
know, yeah, it's like for example, like my dad. My dad, I don't think he's ever taken an IQ test. I personally have, but I don't think he has. And I would just from what my thing is and also knowing him, I would say that he's probably at a very like he might even fall into the genius category of like
Yeah,
IQ. But but he also doesn't really have too much street smarts. So like I mean at the end of the day, what does IQ measure?
of course
I don't know.
not. No, it's just
Actually,
matters pattern recognition, memory, all that stuff. It's not meant to measure street smarts. It would make sense why
Exactly.
people
Exactly.
like that high of IQ don't have street smarts. Actually,
Yeah.
what's the norm? Like
No, it's true. I mean,
these guys have
it's true, at least from my experience, it's very true, at least for myself. I am very oblivious to the real world. Like, I mean, I'm pretty good with the real world, but also like
yeah.
I don't have the best street smarts, that's for sure.
It's a bit of an introvert thing, but when you get like these guys, they basically borderline have Asperger's. Actually, a lot of them do, where it's
Yeah.
just you're on the spectrum because the way that you see the world is like completely. It's nothing like everyone else you come across. You have fucked up body language, like all these things that come into play here. It's like, of course, that's just the nature of having high IQ, or at least people like this. They do have a gifted to, uh, something ratio. I don't know, gifted to norm ratio. Again, I don't know. I'm just saying though, it was worth mentioning that they're at least number one or two on the IQ scale.
It is
Uh,
interesting. What were you gonna say, Michelle?
I was just gonna say that I think that this is a really nice contrast with the personality type that we talked about last week, which was the ESTP, whereas the ESTP is actually known for being one of the most street smart types.
Yeah.
And then we're right after that following that up with one of the most like pattern recognition kind of
they're
like so
quirky.
aloof, like they don't even know what's going on with reality. Like
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's a pretty good
Contrast.
contrast. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I don't
And I
know.
think oh, go ahead.
I mean, I was gonna say though, it's interesting the way I don't know, the way you worded it got me to think, because you say like they're constant of reality, where it's like I actually think, despite them living in their heads to an extreme degree, like their model of reality is like probably more accurate than like the ES types, because despite them always living in it, like they'll get caught up in the same loops and they can't see the things that the INTP could see, and like you know I don't know. It has a lot to do with trauma too, or pain. Like certain things would bother this type, that like it like the if it like certain things would cause pain to the INTP, that like an extrovert would never even get bothered by it. Like I know me, I get bothered by going into bars or loud settings. It drives me nuts. Like it actually makes my skin crawl, and like it causes like pain, like real pain. So it's like that stuff gets etched right into your skull. So it's like I don't know. And then like you just start to realize, well, well, maybe you have to ask yourself, well, why is that? Why is it? Why does that happen? And it's like, well, maybe it's because that stuff, being in those scenarios don't really cause any benefit to me, whereas I could just be reading. That's what I'm thinking all the time. Like I could be reading, I could be doing something else. Like I'm sitting in traffic, like I could be doing something else. Like I'm sure that the INTP probably feels similar.
That's actually interesting that you say that, as far as, like, going places, because I also think that, like, INTPs obviously as, like, an introverted type, they're going to be, like, maybe less inclined to do that kinda stuff, but this is also, I think, where INTJs and INTPs differ. INTJs do not care about the emotional atmosphere, um,
Mhm.
and they do not value it. Like, that's
Hmm.
just not like, extroverted feeling, they don't care, and they're not very good at it, and INTPs, however, aren't very good at, extroverted feeling either, but they do value the emotional atmosphere, and they actually really like, if the emotional atmosphere is positive and, like, upbeat and, like, drama free, at least in the INTP's mind, they're going to have a lot of fun. And because they also value introverted sensing, I would actually say if they have good experiences going out, they're gonna actually want to go out.
Yeah.
And maybe it's gonna be with the right people, but whereas the INTJs pretty much gonna be hesitant almost any time
You
because they
know,
don't value introverted sensing.
Yeah. I actually would like to add on to that real fast and use my, roommate as an example. He loved going out. I mean, he wouldn't be talking to everybody, but he
Yeah.
wanted to, like, support his friends, like, our other roommate, the ESTP, he was in a band, so, like, all of us would go out, watch him, the INTP would be really enthralled by the music, he'd be, like, doing his, like, little dances to it. I mean, he'd be standing there with his beer just kinda, like, bobbing his head or whatever, but he really did enjoy, like, going out and doing those kinda things, and he loved, like, the after part where we all would, like, hang out and talk and chat and whatever. Um, sorry. But, like, he actually did like that stuff. I mean, he wasn't, like, getting into the middle of a bunch of conversations. Well, I mean, unless it was some kinda, like, philosophical conversation or some kinda, like, interesting conversation, sure, but yeah, anyway.
Yeah. Which actually, that's a I don't think people bring up that distinction about INTPs and INTJs, but I do think that's like a huge thing. Because I know for my INTJ friends and you, Sean, is like doesn't matter what group of people they are. I mean, it does, I guess it does matter. Like, if it's a group of friends, it's a bit different. Like, the INTJ is going to feel a lot more inclined, at least from my experience. But in general, it's still like pulling teeth to get an INTJ to go out to like a bar or club.
Yep.
In many situations, it's like, no, I don't want to do that or
It's just the
something.
sensory overload. Like I don't think
Yeah.
that the oh that is one thing though. The INTP. Okay, the difference. I mean, I haven't done really any drugs in a long time, but like I like any as far as like drinking or anything goes, like I've always been super sensitive. Like I just get like my tolerance for everything has been low. Like even prescription drugs, like they say to take like 2 Tylenol, like it's the 500 milligram ones, and I only take one. And my mom is like, take two. Like everyone else takes two, but like one gets me like all the pain goes away. It's like a hypersensitive nervous system. Whereas the INTP friend I have, he can just fuck himself up with drugs. You know, it's something with the SE, like the extroverted sensing being the fourth function for me, whereas they don't have that.
Right,
That's
it's
interesting.
their polar function or their, like, quote, unquote, "blind function,"
Yeah,
so
like I get
interesting.
over, and when I go to those bars, like the noise is just, or any of that stuff, like those social settings, it's just so loud, like I can't even think. Crazy. Whereas I think they'd be able to tune it out a bit more. I'm not exactly positive.
Well, because they're so in tuned with the I mean, I'm not saying that an INTP would go to somewhere unless they found it interesting. I don't think they would go like out on their own necessarily unless it was like to a
No,
band they
never.
wanted to see or something. But like but for them, if they're with people that they like care about, again, they're not going to like think of this like, necessarily consciously or in the forefront of their minds, but they just naturally want to be like how Michelle is saying, like supportive, and like they really do value that that extroverted feeling. They value the atmosphere and they value like those kind of feelings a lot more than, again, you do not give a shit about that.
Mm-mm. No,
So,
I mean, one other thing though that I will say is that if it's not sensory overload for me, I can be like, really into it. Like if it's just like a couple people, like seven, maybe a group of like seven friends, it's at my house in the garage, and they're not like they can get drunk all they want, but like I just go at my own pace or do whatever. Like it's not, I'm gonna be fine. Like I'm gonna enjoy it even. But if it's
oh yeah.
anywhere that's sensory overload, too loud noises, too many people, like I gotta stand. Like standing is a big like I hate it. So it's just like anything sensory wise takes away from the experience for me at least.
That's really interesting because like I actually relate to you on a lot of that because like as an INFJ and an INTJ, we both lead with introverted intuition and our fourth function is extroverted sensing. And like for me, I think what really overrides that is the extroverted feeling, like that I do end up doing that because I get sensory overload as well, but I just like am able to just like not focus on that, but focus on the emotional atmosphere. Like
Yeah, that's interesting.
I
That's
also get
FE.
affected I get affected very much by, what's it called? Prescription, like, I mean, like you were saying, like
Yeah,
medicine and alcohol. I actually have such a low tolerance to alcohol.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. It's an extroverted sensing thing. Like I remember when I got my wisdom teeth out, when I woke up from that shit, like it was the worst headache ever, and I'm almost positive it's because like whatever they give like the normal dose probably just gave me a rocking headache. You know what I'm saying? Because it's probably too much. I don't know. Like they probably just every single time a doctor prescribes me something, I take it and cut it in half, and it works. Like it's just because they're used to. They're like, oh, this guy's weight is this, his age is this. They're just gonna give me the X. So
Yeah.
it's like, or I use some level of judgment. Like obviously there's some things that don't matter, but you know what I'm saying though. Like
Yeah, I do.
as far as the sensory portion of the situation, I do think INTPs would vary a bit than from mine or your experience. They do have FE as their fourth function, which should be talked about. I did watch the Michael Pierce video a while back. I didn't watch it before this episode, but he did mention something like that's what brings out like their quirky side. Like they have like a quirky. I agree too because
Yeah, I agree.
like this one INTP, the INTP friend I have, there was another INTP that was also in the Discord at one point, and like when they got together, suddenly these like I've seen a new side of this guy. I was like, wait a minute, like I've never seen this mode turn on, of where he's just in this like meme mode where like they just like I don't even get like that. Like, I don't know. They definitely have a joking like a weird. I don't know what the effect of extroverted feeling has on them. Do you know? Do either of you know?
Well, that's what I was saying is like, yeah, there's definitely, they just are not as aware of it. That's why like they're so affected by like atmospheric emotions of the people around them. And like also it's like they'll kind of lean into certain emotions. And like I said, so they're not always so aware of like what emotions they have, and so they'll be very extreme with their emotions sometimes, like even what you're saying, the goofy thing. And also something that I've noticed, and I don't know if you guys have noticed this, and I don't see this with every single INTP, but I have seen it with quite a few, is like some INTPs will do this thing when they're talking, they will like smile in kind of an awkward way, and I don't think they mean to do this.
Yeah.
Like smile after every single thing they say, or like laugh, like do this like kind of weird giggle thing after
Oh my god, my roommate did a weird giggle all the time.
And I'm just
Oh my
like, why are
God.
you doing this? Why can't you just have a normal conversation? I'm sorry if this is offending any of the INTPs out there, but it's just something I've noticed. It's like, you don't need to smile. You don't need to do the giggle thing.
Right.
But I think it's something they've kind of learned with like, that they kind of have to do that to be acceptable, like to not come across as like this robotic figure, which I don't think they come as much off as like robotic as like an INTJ. But what were you going to say, Michelle?
No, I've actually watched some interviews with INTPs where they explicitly said they have watched other people's behaviors and come up with a kind of like guideline for how they need to act around different people, so that they can like come off normal. So they'll like repeatedly with that like SI, FE kind of thing, do the same things over and over because that's what they've learned is the acceptable response, and they don't see any reason to change unless like it stops working.
Well, and I think the maybe why it doesn't stop working to them is like because people don't call them out about it, because they just think it's like a quirk that they have. I mean, honestly, this sounds really like judgmental, but like I've just noticed this about like INTPs, and I mean both male and female, and I don't get it. I don't know why. Like you don't need to say, "Hey, oh yeah, like today was fun." Or like do like a laugh, or like I mean a smile, but like it's just something I've noticed, and I'm just like, why don't do this? I've also noticed that kind of with ENTPs, but not as much.
Yeah,
Mostly with INTPs.
And I'm going to kind of bring that back to the SI thing and FE, because actually thinking about ENTPs, I have heard many of them say that they have like a code that they live by, like a code of behaviors. And I think I just think that that has a lot to do with it. Like they have this code, which their SI just wants to like live up to it and repeat it so they don't have to think about it, so they can spend their time focusing on the extroverted, intuitive, new, cool, fun ideas. So like they just have these kind of like habitual behaviors like that because they've just created this code. So long as they don't break the code, they're not doing anything morally terrible, so they can just like continue the actions that they're doing, and then they don't have to think about their actions, so they can think about things that are more interesting to them.
That sounds actually super meta, because it's like so many INTPs are like programmers, and now they're programming themselves. What code should I use for myself?
Oh my god, that was funny.
Um,
Sorry, INTPs. Give us all your opinions in the
Yeah,
comments
I know. I mean,
about what you think
obviously
about what we're
we've
saying.
had a lot of positive things to say, and I think a
yeah,
lot of people kind of think that I don't like INTPs because I have made different videos, and I personally don't think that INFJs and INTPs are the best match, but that goes on with socionics and just like personal experience and stuff. I love INTPs, and I wouldn't personally. I've dated INTPs before. I mean, I've basically dated every personality type, like gone on dates, not like in a relationship with. I'm not like a little. I
Nice
mean,
clarification there.
yeah, I yeah, I'm just dating everybody.
She
Just like
dates
hit me up
everyone.
in my DMs and the yeah. I'm just kidding.
So long as she knows, she has to know their type. Come on, she's
Well,
got standards.
whether or not they like tell me their type, I'm gonna try to figure it out. I just like psychoanalyze people, but anyways, I digress. But yeah.
so my friend actually hit me up right now, and so I figured I would take the the chance to ask him like what he thinks the core difference between the INTP and the INTJ is. And he says like he answered this instantly. He says core difference. He says INTJs plan like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then he says INTPs they go 1, 4, 6, and he says then
Yeah.
they just fill in the blanks.
Mm.
He says when they're doing it. He says they don't plan as much. They tend to just wing it. And I agree. I'm so just like it needs to go in order, like in the way that I have it.
Right, and it almost causes like anxiety if it
Yeah.
doesn't go in that particular order.
I have seen that so much with my INTJ friends. Like my friend Rachel, who I was just like hanging out with because we were like hanging out in Charleston, with her family. She's just so much like that. She's just like so routine, and she just has it like this is the plan, and if you obstruct that plan, it's just like very stressful for her. But yeah, like I think that's a good way your friend put it, and it's almost, and the reason why is really because they don't value extroverted thinking. I mean, they still use extroverted thinking, but they don't value it.
Mm-hmm.
And also extroverted intuition, their secondary function or their auxiliary function is, looking for possibilities. They don't want to get like just crammed into a schedule. I don't know.
Yeah. He says, he honestly did crack a joke. Like, he just makes jokes that I wouldn't make. Like, he says the difference between INTJ and INTP is one has a J and one has a P. Like, just corny jokes. Like, they are quirky. Like, they just say weird stuff that I just wouldn't say. Like, I don't have the same humor that I don't have that humor. Like,
they do have
people
really
laugh at things I
interesting humor.
say, but I just mostly just drop the honest. Like, I don't really try. They seem to have, I don't know, man. I don't know. But anyway, he says, he said it's because INTJs are comfortable or no, he says INTPs are comfortable with having just a rough outline and then figuring the rest out. I think that's so true. Like, it's so true in my experience.
That is true, but I feel like that's like that's also, but that could also be said for like your experiences. And I like, even though, I mean, again, you have extroverted thinking, so it's a bit different, but like with NI, you have like what your vision is. I almost feel like outline isn't the best word to use, almost like a I don't know, like a system, like a web, or I mean not a web, but like this like
a web, yeah.
weird mismatched, like I don't even know how to describe it.
One thing I will point out is that your friend didn't mention that the INTP has an 8, which is the end goal in this analogy, because it said the INTJ had 1 through 8 in order and the INTP had 1, 4, 6. So they didn't even have the end goal in mind.
That's interesting. I didn't even catch that, Michelle. Look at you, Sherlock Holmes over here.
Trying to
his summary here,
flex
he says,
my NI.
I think to a large extent, it's like the INTJ is a systematic killer, while the INTP is someone who just knows how to control chaos and come out on top.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like
well, and they don't even care about coming out on top, really. I don't know.
Well, I think if you ask any type, every type wants to be successful. That's beyond.
Yeah, being ambitious. Yeah, but they're not. It's not. I don't know, it's different.
We all
It
have
is
different
different.
ways of manipulating the world to our liking, and that's just what he
Exactly.
was saying.
Mm.
They're much more comfortable sitting in chaos than I am. Like, I lose my mind from the concept of that kind of stuff, like improv or like having to go on the fly. It flusters me to a point where like I become worthless to the team, you know? Like, I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I get that.
I prefer to be organized. I prefer to be a shot caller. Like, even when I play games, like I just want to make a call in the beginning, and then what everyone else can adapt to my call, or like if someone else wants to make a call, like I'll be like, all right, we could do that. Like it's cool. Like I'm not that close. I'm not close minded about it. But like if no one makes a call, I'll make one. If that makes sense. Like, hey, let's go to
Yeah.
A. Like we need to have some kind of plan. Like I need some kind of plan, whereas they don't. INTPs definitely don't. You know.
So another thing I'd like to point out, at least that I've noticed, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, um, INTPs are much less confrontational in general than
Mm.
an INTJ.
It does seem so. It does. I think
Like
if you
they'll
provoke them, though, they'll fucking snap.
right.
They'll
Yeah.
snap. Like INTPs are like they'll blow a gasket, but like I do think they won't stir it up. Like you got to do something to them, and then they'll, you know,
Yeah.
versus like to me, maybe sometimes it'll seem as if I'm provoking people. I might not even. Maybe I'm in a mood just to make to joke around, but other times maybe I'll say something that had no intention of hurting people, and it'll provoke them.
I think that's true to a degree. The thing about INTJs is like I think INTJs come off as more confrontational because they just don't give a fuck like about like your feelings and
Right.
they're not worried about the I mean, they do, but they're not like they don't care about like the atmospheric again extrovert feeling world.
Yeah.
I
Right.
think again it also, there's other things behind this, but like not to go into details, but like knowing my father and like knowing I'm like certain INTPs that I'm closer with, but especially my dad. It's like even well, actually INTPs that I've worked with, they are very basically like happy go lucky in a lot of ways. And they have like this very like childlike side to them, way more than like the INTJ.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, like Shaun was saying, if you hit them in the right spot, and it typically, like I've seen this with my dad, it's actually like what he gets mad about is if he feels like something's unfair, like because they're very democratic in their
Mm.
approach.
Interesting.
Um, and again, it's because of the extrovert feeling that but they have a different stance on extrovert feeling than say like me. Like I don't necessarily have super democratic views. I mean, not in like a political sense, but like as far as um basically I've seen it where, for example, there's this girl that I used to work with at Starbucks in Seattle, and she is an INTP. She also is a coder, going to her computer
Okay.
but that's besides the point. She basically there is this one customer, which what was her name? I'm just gonna name drop her because like, okay, if you're watching this or listening to this,
They're
no
not.
offense, no offense, but actually offense. There was this one customer named Zara, and she would just come into the Starbucks and be like, "It's Zara." She would be like, "Oh, it's Zara," and she just kind of was not the nicest with people, especially new people. She would expect people to get her drink right, and what she would do is she would, if I'm remembering this correctly, I don't remember. I'm probably not going to remember the ingredients, but I'm going to try to think of it. I think it was like a latte or flat white or something like that, where she would order a venti, which is 20 ounces if you don't know like Starbucks lingo or whatever. And then she would want it to be split into two, what's it called? Two tall cups, which is 12 ounces. So if you do the math on that, that's
Yes.
24 ounces.
Yes, I had a
Yes.
customer like that too.
And what she would want is she would want like, I forget how many, but we're going to just say, let's say there's 4 brown sugars in the entire thing. So and then she would want it to be 200 degrees, which is not at all the standard for Starbucks. And yeah. And then she would want her coffee beans. So she would say, I want my beans, I want my beans. And then we would have to give her like a coffee beater. Anyways, Zara like got under this INTP's skin. Like she didn't, her name's Morgan, by the way, which Morgan, if you're listening to this for some reason, hey. But Morgan would just get so frustrated with Zara, hated Zara. And a lot of people didn't like her that much. But I mean, I didn't mind her because I like kind of was able to empathize with her, and like even though she was mean to me at first, like I don't know, I ended up being pretty okay with her. But anyways, Morgan never got over that, and she just didn't like the fact that she was completely like basically she was like the special snowflake at the Starbucks and everybody else had to like step in line. She really didn't like that. So, I mean, that's just an example, I guess. But that was a really random story, sorry. But
Yeah, I actually kind of didn't mean to make this episode so much as into like an INTP versus INTJ thing, but it seems to be a topic that's brought up enough as it is anyway. So I'm not
So
hurt about that.
I don't think this conversation is wanting you to apologize because it just went all crazy while you were talking. I don't know. Did it do that for you too, Emily?
oh,
Oh,
really? Did it?
what?
Oh yeah.
I don't
Oh,
know.
it was just all like breaking in and out. Oh, was it not for you guys? Maybe that's just my internet. Never mind. Sorry.
Anyhow, I think because we're an hour in now, I think we should read this INTP personal growth page that I read last time because it's good content. It's by the book, you know. We need some by the book stuff, right?
Yeah. Go ahead.
All right, all
And
right.
then we can, I guess, wrap it all up.
Okay, so it says nearly all INTPs will recognize the following characteristics in themselves. They should embrace and nourish these strengths. They have a natural ability to focus and get in the zone when working on a problem. It goes on and on, but I think that first sentence alone is true. Where it's like, I don't know. Do you guys feel like there's certain types that have like built-in ADHD? Like I know they've made that joke about the ESTP too, but I would say like the perceiver types kind of just they have zones they get in that maybe that's a bit of a generalization,
I
but
mean, I
this
think
type in
that
particular can. I'm sure of it with the INTP. I'm sure of it.
I think having extroverted intuition can give you a predisposition to having ADD where you
Yeah,
can just close off into your mind and not recognize the world around you.
yeah. That's definitely true. It says their respect for precision in communication lends them the ability to accurately convey their ideas and discoveries in full. That's interesting. You think that they would be better philosophers than the INTJ? What do you guys think? Because I'm precise with my language, in my opinion. But
I mean, I think it depends on what you're looking for from a philosopher. I think TI lends itself to philosophy in a lot of ways,
yes,
but
that's true.
um, I think both could be really good. However, like you were saying before, um, why would you be talking or thinking about something that doesn't have any use to you?
Yeah, that's true.
So the philosophy would have to be useful to you, whereas for an INTP, they'd probably be more willing to philosophize about something that has nothing of value for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think an INTJ would like philosophy that was more in line with like personal development or personal growth. Like how Michelle was saying, I just don't think typically INTJs, unless they really like made themselves, I don't think INTJs would just be into philosophy for philosophy's sake,
Yeah.
whereas INTPs would.
You know, I've never found myself attracted to philosophy. After all the reading I've done, I don't actually care for it like that. I asked the question because I was curious, but like I prefer psychology much more. Like I almost all the books I own are on psychology over which is a very modern science with plenty of flaws. But
Right,
philosophy is ancient and, arguably there's tons of good content out there and I hardly read any of it. It just
right.
doesn't do it for me.
But I'm sure if you got caught up in that kind of conversation, you would engage in it.
Have I read philosophy? Sure, but I don't know. I think maybe INTPs would like philosophy more. It says they are usually quite intelligent and can grasp difficult concepts. That's pretty much goes without saying. Uh, all the NT types are really smart, but of course they're all smart in different ways. Uh, I found something. I gotta just go for a second, real quick. I found something earlier because I was browsing all these memes and all this stuff, and it said it's like it was like an article. It was like, why are INTPs so broke? And I was like, what? I was like, what the hell? I was like, they gotta be playing. Um, I think that's funny, but I don't know. They kind of do have that stereotype. I'm not sure though. I don't know. They did a survey or something. Again, these MBTI surveys, guys, they're very limited, mainly because not only is the community small, but just we don't have mass amounts of data to go off. So it's not that the studies are invalid; they're just take them with a grain of salt. Uh,
I would like to add that any survey that you see, you should take with a grain of salt because you don't know the pool of people who are inputting into it.
yeah, yeah. It's number based. I mean, yeah. Social media polls are actually better than a lot of surveys nowadays. But anyway, um, it says they're jovial and good-natured with a good sense of humor. I agree. I do think they have a good sense of humor. They are overly demanding in personal. They are not overly demanding in personal relationships, and have simple daily needs. Ooh, that's interesting. Actually know nothing about that. They are not overly demanding in personal relationships. Have simple daily needs. They are often easy and enjoyable to live with. Really? What do you guys think about that?
I think that's very biased. Like I mean obviously I'm biased too, like everybody's biased, but I think that really depends on the personality that the INTP is associated with. Because I would not say that INTPs, at least in my experience, this is nothing to say like mean towards an INTP, but I personally don't think they're the easiest people to live with. And I also think that, you know, um I forget what was the thing you said before that about living with? I mean
Uh, they're often easy and enjoyable to live with.
before that.
They're not overly demanding in personal relationships.
I would also have to counteract that in a way cuz like I do find, at least for me, um I think it really depends on what kind of relationship you have with that person. I think if it's more of a casual relationship and not like in a romantic sense, but like as a friend or
Yeah,
like an acquaintance or like even a friend, I would say yeah, that's probably true, but if you're like family members with that person or even like romantically involved with that person, I would definitely not say that's true because I find that actually INTPs can be very emotionally needy, and they may not recognize it as that. And I'm not saying that it's like that's a good or bad thing necessarily, but I do find, at least with my dad and other INTPs that I have had closer relationships with, um, I find that they aren't that way with everybody, but with the select few people that they are, it's like very much very intense, I guess.
yeah. Maybe they'll have something like that in the potential problem areas to suit or to support your view. I think if you get close enough with anyone, though, sure, their needs can get in the way and maybe cluster it. I think the point they're making here, though, is has something to do with simple daily needs. I don't know. I don't know.
Daily needs, yeah, they are not super high maintenance. I personally have found that actually they could be more high maintenance with their daily needs.
Hmm.
Um,
Interesting.
like I think sometimes they just don't really value that kind of stuff, so they will neglect it. And this isn't all INTPs, but I have noticed this with certain INTPs, they just don't care. Like,
Yeah, I hear that. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, INTPs who have developed their extroverted intuition will have these traits. They say, they always have like, those last couple traits they say should be pretty universal. Then they have the ones that if you develop yourself, you might also see these. And these are the ones that they're listing here. They may be exceptionally intelligent and make groundbreaking discoveries. That's pretty obvious. With a well-developed understanding of their environment and the ability to act very quickly, they may be good athletes. Now that is fascinating. That's fascinating. I don't know. Probably more than an INTJ. I would say maybe so. But
Well, like I
that's
said, my
interesting.
roommate was really into rock climbing and biking, and he was really good at both
Really?
of those.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. So not all INTPs are Reddit hermits who sit on the internet for 12 hours.
Yeah, this guy was super in shape, so
They're typically
Oh,
able to
oh.
communicate their ideas more concisely than the average INTP without sacrificing accuracy. So they have a developmental potential right there where they can communicate their thoughts a little more concisely. Interesting.
Well, because they are always developing via TI, introverted thinking logic. Like that's their like primary realm. So they're always looking like if there's some type of logical trap, they're going to try to find it and like basically make sure that their argument is sound. It's just like what you find with ENTPs as well. But actually, going back to the physical activity stuff, I think that also has to do with introverted sensing in a lot of ways because that's their tertiary function, and then also their secondary or auxiliary function is extroverted intuition, and then the extroverted feeling at the end. Basically, if they have like a good experience doing something in like the physical activity realm, so for example my dad, it's tennis or like skiing or something like that, it's like they are looking for that experience again, so they're gonna like just like how it was with the emotionality of like maybe laughing or smiling after certain things, they find that, oh, this works, and then stopping if it doesn't work. It's the same thing as like doing these physical activities. It's like, oh, it works. Like, I like it. I really like this. I've had good experiences. I'm going to continue these experiences, if that makes sense. I don't
Mhm.
know.
Yeah, these are all good points. It says they understand the benefits of close relationships and understand how to support and enhance these relationships. That's if they develop themselves. I'm not sure they come with this one by default, but I could see that maybe. They see the value of principles that are not strictly logical. Yeah, actually, to be honest, these all do sound like things that they would get like if they develop themselves. Like these are the the frosting on top of the cake. These aren't a part of the cake. They have a
Uh, I would say it is, but it's just not something that they're as conscious about. Like that's all kind of about like extra feeling. So they value it, but they're not necessarily good at it. So as they develop themselves, they would, I think personally for any personality type, you want to try to develop your weaker functions as well and just
yeah.
like try to be the best version of yourself. And for an INTP is being like in touch with um I guess like knowing the strength of the emotions around them and how to kind of mend to that, and also like how to be emotionally appropriate too. I don't know.
Yeah. This is the last one that here is they in the pros. They have attractive and compelling personalities and are well liked and accepted by most people. Again, this is the one they say if they develop their extrovert intuition that this is what they'll have. I believe it. I'm sure more than me. The more I read this stuff, the more I realize how different I am than these guys.
Yeah, INTJs are very different than INTPs because like functionally they're just so different. But yeah, I think for INTPs, just again developmentally, like they have so many interests and so many things that they like that they're bound to kind of mend or mesh well with so many other people, because so many people are like, there's a lot of people that are interested in specific things or like maybe a handful of things, but because the INTP is just interested in so much, just acquiring so much knowledge, they probably have put their feelers out to those things, so they're able to talk with those people about things that they're passionate about, and people really do um love that. And I think if an INTP understands that, like they kind of step into that role of realizing, hey, like people actually really love like talking about their passions, and this could be something that maybe could help me socially kind of merge with people. it could be very good for them. And I could see why they could be seen as a very, like, I guess, likable personality.
Yeah. Here are the potential problem areas. Sorry to put people to sleep who don't like this technical stuff, but these ones are a lot shorter. The INTP gets stuck in a rut and only does things that are known and comfortable to the INTP. I could see that. The INTP resists and rejects anything that doesn't support their own experimental understanding of the world. If they perceive something is not logical, they reject it as unimportant. Again, these are flaws that where it's like if the dominant function overtakes the rest of the type, then these are things you might see. They reject people who think or live differently than themselves. I could see that.
I agree with that. I mean, someone that's more unhealthy, like as an INTP, or like someone that hasn't developed themselves as much, they can be that way. I know INTPs to be that way. That's why like the confrontational aspect is so kind of is like a gray area, like especially in comparison of like an INTJ, because like I think INTJs are more like live and let live, in the sense that they don't really care because they're just like, okay, you can have this like idea, but like I'm not attached to that.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas the INTP, it really irks them if they, like, for example, going back to my dad, and this is throwing my dad under the bus, so I'm not gonna like be
It's
too
fine. It's
super
good.
specific. Like, I love my dad. Again, I have a really good relationship with my dad, but I just find this could be insightful. So my dad is like Catholic. I'm also Catholic, but that's beside the point. He basically any kind of, I guess, religious organization that will come to the door, instead of just being like, no, thank you, we're not interested, or like, oh, yeah, I'm already Christian, or something like that, he will invite them in and have a conversation with them and like basically make it into almost a debate and like just like lay down exactly what he believes and stuff. And it can kind of be intimidating for people. And I don't think he means to be argumentative about it, but it definitely can come across that way. And yeah, he does not just like, if he believes in something, he will not just like pretend like he doesn't, I guess.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I could see that. Um, some of these other ones, they may be extremely caustic and insulting to others. I mean, that's not surprising to me. ENTPs and INTPs both, which we compared the INTP to the INTJ the whole episode, but we didn't compare them to the ENTP at all. But yeah, this is also probably a trait of the ENTP as well, where they could just be super rude. If they want to be. May become isolated from society. I actually think that INTPs have more of a hermit-like uh, desire than me. Like this guy I talk to actually quite often talks about how sometimes he just wants to talk to no one. Like I don't know, me I have core I'd rather just have a small and definitive core group and cut anyone out that doesn't A provide value and B doesn't actually look at me like an ally. So I want people who want the best for me, and I want people that and once I can validate all these things, then I let you in. Then I want to get close with that person, but I don't want to inherently be completely alone. But it seems like INTPs sometimes they almost have this desire to really just like isolate to a new level. I mean I'm isolated. I like to keep the number of people in my life low, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there's INTPs with just no friends out there, like just zero. Actually wouldn't surprise me. Uh, they may become overly paranoid about social organizations and institutions trying to control them. That's actually funny. I don't know what that is. What function is that? I have no
The
clue.
conspiracy theory function, that's what that is.
Yeah, they may unknowingly or uncaringly hurt people's feelings. That's not too surprising either.
definitely, I mean, again, I just feel like because I have such a close relationship, I mean, just from my dad, and again, the people that I have been really close to that are INTPs, like I have seen all of these things, the good and the bad
Yeah.
and the ugly. So
They may be completely unaware of how to express their inner world to others in a meaningful way. I do think you kind of need to let them express their inner world their way, and that might be annoying to certain types. But if you can let them do that, then you'll be able to understand pretty much everything they're saying. Sometimes they just have some things that you just gotta like, you gotta give them a chance. You know, you gotta give them a chance. Sometimes they might not be able to express that. So I think it has to do with extroverted feeling. I'm not sure though. I'm not sure. If pushed beyond their comfort level to form commitments or emotional bonds, they may reject a relationship entirely. Hmm. What do you guys think about that one?
Michelle, what do you think?
I mean, my INTP experience is pretty limited because, I mean, although we do have interesting conversations, we're not two types that often get that close, I don't think.
Yeah,
Um,
I could see that. Yeah.
like we can really get along in terms of making conversation, but I think in terms of long-term friendship, we have a lot of different interests in the long run. So I don't really know if I can comment on that.
There's a lot more ENFP INTJ memes on the internet than ENFP INTP memes.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a thing. But yeah, I don't know. If pushed beyond their comfort to form commitments or emotional bonds, they may just reject a relationship entirely. I don't know. That's emotionally unavailable, which is interesting.
Right, which any type could get emotionally unavailable.
Yeah, but maybe INTPs are particularly prone to it if they're like, this person wants me to do X and I'm unwilling to do X, therefore this entire relationship can't exist.
Hmm.
That's interesting. Whereas most people will try to, just say, okay, well, X isn't that important. We can keep the relationship going without X. Or we could say, well, maybe I can work on X, compromise. But yeah.
Mm.
Under stress, they may show intense emotions that seem disproportionate to the situation. Hmm. Yeah. A lot of these are just pointing to like the same flaws. I don't know. They kind of recycle this stuff. They may not recognize basic social principles such as appropriate dress and general behavior.
We talked about that one already.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's it on these. I mean, I figure it's good to give a little bit of a textbook uh, discussion here too as well.
All
Just for the
those TE valuing people out there.
Yeah, I mean they give good points. I mean most of the stuff they say is pretty accurate. It's just uh, you know, usually there's one or two points in here that we say maybe aren't applicable to every scenario. But a lot of these are pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, INTP probably one of my favorite types, as I said. Probably the only person I've ever gotten like. It's not that I've never gotten close to other people. It's simply that like I've never been able to connect with another person in the way that I'm connecting with this INTP friend of mine right now. So I just find that one fascinating, and it might not even happen with every INTP. And maybe I could get on this level with every. Now I wouldn't say every type, but a bunch of other types too, and I'm just not looking hard enough. That's the other thing too is it's a lot easier to meet someone now over the internet because INTJs spend their whole day on the internet, INTPs spend their whole day on the internet. Where it's like it's very unlikely you're gonna find one of us like another like INTJ like that out in public. Like all these memes, like where are all the INTPs? It's like well they're in their rooms. Like you're not gonna find those people outside.
Yeah, and I think it just depends because like there are INTPs that do go outside like we said, but yeah, I can see that why that would be someone that you would get along with more than you have with other people just because there are so many people on the internet. But yeah.
But yeah, I think that concludes the INTP episode. Pretty good, pretty long, pretty good stuff we said. Anything else you guys want to say?
Definitely check out well, subscribe to our YouTube channel, My Type of Shit. If you're not subscribed or if you're listening to this off of some other platform, which again, hopefully we are doing that in the future where it's like Spotify or iTunes or something. But Also, follow us on our Instagram and Twitter. And then, would you guys like to shout out your channels or your information for people?
Yeah, just follow me on Twitter. It's at Perception. That's all you need.
You just need to add a little perception to your life. You can follow me on my YouTube channel, Michelle Wilson. It's just YouTube/C/Michelle Wilson, one word. I don't know if capitals matter. Either way, the links are going to be in the description. Follow us all. Um, and thanks for watching.
Thanks for
Thanks
watching,
for
people.
watching.
See you.